50 Shades of Grey. Fanfiction created by Leo. Voice acting done by Graham-Cracker01 and Big Griff. Actors Graham-Cracker01, Big Griff. Cameos JPIC. It is a normal night. Not much happens. Rob the Illest is sitting quietly alone in his bedroom, sprawled out on his bed, not really doing anything. He thinks to himself, how can he acquire more raisins? For he had run out of his endless supply. He had gotten the Sprite Cranberry. He had beat Vinny in his war. And his big fight with Graham-Cracker01 was coming up around the corner. But due to coronavirus, he was stuck in his room. So all he could do was think to himself. Most of that thinking was mostly porn, but we're not going to touch up on that. But then, as Rob sits alone in his bedroom, he hears a noise in the hallway.
What was that?
Rob was alone in his house, for his parents had went out, disobeying the coronavirus regulations. Rob was a little scared, for no one else was in his house, and he couldn't think of who it was. His dogs were in the kennel, in the back room. He stepped out into the hallway, looked down, but nothing was there. Frightened he was, but his enormous pecs would keep him safe. He looked down the staircase to the basement. The noise was coming from there. As he put his foot on the steps, he heard a crunch. Scared, he tried running back up the staircase, but the door slammed shut and locked in front of him. Unbelievably terrified, Rob tried to break through. But just as that happened, in the corner of his eye, he saw a silhouette looming over the darkness, pitch black, with no recognizable features. It just stood there. Something was in its hand, but it was unrecognizable. Until the light turned on. A flash of a lightsaber illuminated blue light. The light illuminated the figure's face. It also illuminated the ground around him. Rob saw nothing but taco shells filled with sour cream and beef, sprinkled around the floor. Some were crumbled, some were perfectly intact. But how they got there, he didn't know. But Rob looked at the figure. He recognized who it was. As Rob yelled at the figure then stood out into the light. It was Graham.
No, not again! Not again!
Graham would never act this way on purpose, but for some reason he was acting overtly unusual. No words could describe the look on his face, for it was beyond sinister, as if he lusted for something. Rob tried to run, but Graham made his way to him, and in one swift motion, Rob was taken. "You're now my little chew toy, little Robert," Graham said as he slowly nibbled Rob's toes. Rob feeling the excruciating pain and feeling of ickiness as Graham's saliva and tongue wiggled throughout his toes. He knew he was done. All he hoped for was the sweet release of death. Even getting sick with corona would do nothing, or would be nothing, as excruciating as this feeling. He laid there helpless. But then out of nowhere, he looks to his side and sees a ray of hope. Out of seemingly nowhere, the famous YouTuber and Roblox player, JPIC, burst into the room. Rob is relieved, for he believed that he had come to help him and save him from this paralyzing event. Or so he thought. For the person that he thought would come rescue him turned out to shame him even further. Japik ran over to him, ripped his shirt off, and started sucking on his pepperoni nipples. Rob thought it couldn't get any worse than this, but then Graham turned him over, and the worst came. He ate his ass. This continued for more than 3 weeks, for which sounds could be heard coming from the house. Rob's parents never came home, for they were too scared to go in and see what the noise was. Graham and Rob and Japik were never seen again, but especially Rob. Even when the house was investigated later, no signs of either three were seen. The dogs were almost starved in the back room. Luckily, they made it. An Amber Alert was sent out, trying to find Rob and the 2 others, but no one knew that it was in fact Graham and Japik who were the assaulters to the victim. Rob was never to be seen again. And that concludes this story.